China, 1800. A narrative for voice, American cadence. Listen, if you could open a door in time and step into China in the year 1800, you would not step into a single scene. You would step into a world. A world so large it seems to have its own weather, its own gravity, its own heartbeat. China in 1800 is the Qing Empire at full stretch. An empire with polished rituals and heavy boots. An empire that can move grain across provinces like blood through arteries. And also an empire where a single bad harvest can turn a county into a storm of hunger. So let me tell you about that year, not as a list of dates, but as a living landscape. A story you can see, a story you can hear, a story you can feel in your bones. Start with the sound. In Beijing, you hear it first in the mornings. The creak of gates, the shuffle of courtiers, the soft scrape of silk sleeves, and the distant, disciplined thud of drums that keep time for a city built around power. The Forbidden City does not shout. It persuades. It weighs on the air. In 1800, the Jiaqing Emperor has already stepped down. Not out of humility, but out of tradition and calculation. And the throne belongs to the Jiaqing Emperor, a man inheriting not just a crown, but the problems that come with a crown too long worn. And those problems, they aren't just court gossip. They are structural. They are deep. They are the kind of problems that don't arrive with fireworks. They arrive like rot in a beam. Quiet, patient, and ready to bring the whole roof down when the wind finally hits. Now widen the frame. China in 1800 is enormous. From the cold edges of Manchuria to the wheat fields of the North China Plain, to the river cities of the Yangtze, to the wet green hills of the south, to the western frontiers where mountains rise like stone oceans. If you were a traveler, you could spend months moving and still be in the same empire. The accents would change, the food would change, the climate would change. But the imperial seal, that red stamp of authority, would follow you like a shadow. And yet, for all its reach, the empire is not a machine made of iron. It is a human machine, built out of people.
This concerns the ever-normal Grand Canal,
never
Majesty.
perfectly obedient,
Drought in Shandong
never perfectly predictable. Let's take a ride down the Grand Canal. Picture it at dawn. The water is gray and calm, mist hangs low. Barges move slowly, heavy with grain, tax grain, relief grain, the grain that feeds cities and armies. Men on the towpaths lean into ropes. Their backs are bent in the same shape as necessity. You hear the splash of oars, the squeal of wet wood, the short calls between boatmen. This canal is not just water. It is policy. It is survival. It is the empire's promise that Beijing will eat even when the north freezes. In 1800, the Qing state still knows how to move food. Still knows how to organize labor, still knows how to look powerful. But power has a maintenance cost, and that cost is rising. Now shift to a county magistrate's office. Not a palace, a simple compound with a gate, a courtyard, a desk that's seen too many petitions. A line of villagers waits outside. They hold papers. Or sometimes they hold nothing but their hats and their fear. A father complains about a land boundary. A widow begs for tax relief. A merchant argues about a seized shipment. A farmer swears the harvest was ruined by flood and asks for mercy. And the magistrate, the empire's face at the local level, must decide what to do with all of it. He is trained in Confucian classics. He can quote moral philosophy. He can write elegant prose. But in 1800, he also has to navigate something the classics don't fix: pressure. Pressure from above to collect revenue. Pressure from below to keep people alive. Pressure from middlemen, clerks, runners, local strongmen who can turn any rule into a private business. In a great empire, corruption does not always look like villains in masks.
Sometimes it looks like survival in a bureaucracy.
Pull together now.
A clerk taking a fee because he hasn't been paid properly. A tax collector inflating a number because his superior expects a gift. A local broker charging peasants to interpret paperwork they can't read. Small distortions everywhere, until the empire's own mirror stops reflecting the truth. If you want to understand China in 1800, you have to understand the idea of order. Order is not just a preference here, it is a philosophy, a religion of administration. The Qing state believes in hierarchy: emperor, officials, elders, fathers, sons. The state believes that harmony is possible if everyone stays in their place. And for a long time, that belief works. Not perfectly, but well enough to hold a continent. But the late 1700s and the edge of 1800 bring new strains. Population has grown. Land is finite. Competition gets sharper. The margin for error gets thinner. That means a bad year hits harder. And a series of bad years can turn quiet dissatisfaction into something louder. Now, let's step into the shadow of the mountains.
Pull together now, pull.
Because in 1800, one of the most important things happening is this: rebellion is in the air. Not everywhere at once, not like a single flame, more like embers scattered across dry grass. A few years earlier, the White Lotus Uprising ignited across parts of central China. By 1800, that conflict has already scarred the empire. It forces the Qing to spend money, to move troops, to expose weak governance, to reveal the gap between what the court imagines and what villages endure. Even if you never see a rebel banner, you feel the consequences. More taxes, more soldiers on the road, more suspicion in the eyes of officials. You feel the empire
Case number
tighten.
47. The ruling
And when an
stands.
empire tightens,
Clerk, stamp
people
this and
either
call the next
accept
petitioner.
the squeeze or they push back.
Next petitioner, step forward.
Picture a mountain village at night. A clay lamp burns inside a hut. The air
evidence
smells
is
like
sufficient.
smoke and damp earth.
Clerk,
a
prepare the
family
writ and
eats
affix
thin
the seal.
porridge. A child asks why there is less grain this year.
court is now in session.
Outside, a dog barks.
Petitioner number 12,
Far
approach
away,
the bench.
you hear a shout, then silence.
Clerk,
Is it bandits?
record the approval of
Is
this
it
petition.
soldiers?
The seal
it
confirms
rebels?
the court's decision.
In 1800, the answer changes by province, by valley, by rumor. But the fear is the same. Because the countryside is where the empire's math becomes personal. It's where policy turns into empty bowls. Now let's
Bring
go
the
back
next
to
petitioner
Beijing,
before the court.
back to the center. In the capital, the Jiaqing Emperor faces the hardest truth of power. You can't govern a giant empire with purity alone. You need competent men. You need loyal men. You need clean lines of command. But what if the lines are clogged?
Order in the
What
court.
if the men are compromised? What if the
Bring
system
forth the
rewards
petitioner.
pleasing superiors more than serving the people? One of the great figures looming in this era is He Shen, a powerful court favorite under Qianlong, accused historically of massive corruption.
By the turn into Jiaqing's reign, the court is haunted by the shadow of that influence, by the sense that the
We will
treasury
hear the
has
case
holes
of Le Van
and the
Duc.
state's moral
Approach the
authority
bench.
has been bargained away. So in 1800, the palace
Next
is full of
petitioner, step
quiet
forward.
maneuvers, investigations whispered, not shouted, factions watching each other over tea, officials writing memorials that sound respectful while aiming like arrows. The empire is a stage, and everyone knows the audience can punish. Now, travel south, down past the Yangtze, into the humid, crowded world of the Pearl River Delta. In Guangzhou, Canton, foreign ships wait and bargain. The sea is not just water here, it is a doorway. By 1800, the Qing Empire's official approach to foreign trade is controlled, limited, and cautious. Foreign merchants operate under restrictions. Trade flows through approved channels. The state tries to keep the outside world at arm's length. Not out of ignorance, but out of a belief that the empire does not need outside influence. And yet, commerce has a way of pushing through every fence. Silver flows in, tea flows out. Porcelain, silk, and lacquered goods move like luxury blood through global veins. On the docks, you hear languages that do not match the tones of the marketplace. You see hats and coats cut in foreign styles. You smell unfamiliar tobacco and spirits. And the local Chinese merchant class, skilled, pragmatic, sharp, makes money in the spaces between rules. This is another tension of 1800. The Qing state wants control, but the world wants exchange. Now, let's talk about the people, because a country is never just its rulers. A young scholar in 1800 sits by an oil lamp. He is studying for the civil service examinations. He copies characters until his wrist aches.
We have to leave.
He recites classic passages until his throat is raw.
Too much about the disappeared
For him,
goods.
the exam system is a ladder, a chance to climb from village obscurity into official power. A chance to bring honor to his ancestors. A chance to buy land, support parents, arrange good marriages. But the ladder is crowded. More people than ever are trying to climb. The competition is ferocious. A brilliant mind can still fail. A lucky mind can still rise. So the scholar studies like a man drowning. Because for him, knowledge is not an ornament.
We must be careful.
It is a lifeline. A woman in a river town runs a small stall. She sells noodles, bean curd, pickled vegetables. She knows her customers by voice. She hears everything. She hears which family is struggling, which official is cruel, which tax collector is taking extra, which young men have joined a secret society, which rumors are true, and which rumors are just fear wearing a mask. She keeps her stall open because she has to, because trade, like water, keeps moving, even when politics churn above it. Her world is practical. Her ethics are cooked into daily choices. Who gets the last bowl of hot food? Who gets credit? Who gets turned away? In an empire, morality is often measured in rice. A soldier in 1800 walks a dusty road. His boots are worn. His pay is late. His commander is shouting again. He is told he is defending order. He is told he is defending the Son of Heaven. But he is also defending his own survival. Because if he deserts, he is hunted. If he stays, he might die in a mountain ambush, or from fever in a swamp, or from hunger if supplies fail. The soldier is the empire's muscle. But muscle can cramp. Muscle can fail. And when muscle fails, the skeleton trembles. Now let's look west. In the far western regions, Xinjiang and beyond, the Qing are still managing frontiers taken and held through conquest and administration. These lands are vast, diverse, and difficult. They require garrisons. They require diplomacy. They require constant attention. Frontiers teach empires a simple lesson. Distance is not just miles. Distance is delay. Distance is uncertainty. An edict can take weeks to arrive. A crisis can grow faster than a messenger can ride. So local commanders improvise. Local officials negotiate. Local decisions become imperial fate.
Everything appears to be in order,
In
Magistrate.
1800, China's
We shall
frontiers
record the
are both a
transaction
symbol
as
of
agreed.
Qing strength and a reminder of how thin authority can become when stretched across deserts and mountains. Now,
The
let's
transaction
step
is
into a
complete,
temple
Master Official.
courtyard.
We shall load the remaining
Incense
chests
smoke
by high
coils
tide.
upward.
Excellent.
A bell
We confirm
rings.
the receipt of the silver.
A monk sweeps
crate
fallen
here does not
leaves
match the
with
manifest
slow,
weight,
even
merchant. I
strokes.
assure you, Mandarin, the
A
quality is
traveler
exactly as
kneels and
stipulated.
prays for
A
help.
pleasure doing business.
A mother prays for her child.
All appears in order, Honourable
merchant
Mandarin.
prays
the
for
ledger
profit.
confirms the shipment.
A gambler
A
prays
pleasure
for
doing
luck.
business, Master Blake.
As recorded
Religion
here,
in
Master
1800
Mandarin.
China is
100
not
chests
one
of black
thing.
tea for the Sicey
It is
silver.
a tapestry.
Very well. We have
Buddhist
an agreement.
practices,
See here,
Taoist
the count
rituals,
matches the manifest
local
exactly.
deities,
Yes, sir. And the
ancestor
silver is ready
worship,
for transfer.
folk
It
traditions
seems
that
we have a
hold
deal.
communities together like glue. And in times of stress, people turn to whatever holds. Sometimes they turn
20
to
chests
official
of the
morality.
finest bohea, as agreed,
Sometimes they
payable in
turn
silver
to
Sicey.
secret
Quality is
societies.
satisfactory. We accept
Sometimes
terms.
they turn to
20
heaven.
chests of bohea tea,
The
as
White
recorded
Lotus,
in the
for
ledger.
example,
The count is
is often
accurate,
described
merchant.
as a
The silver
religious
is
movement
prepared.
intertwined with
Count is
rebellion.
accurate, merchant.
To
We
the
accept the
state,
silver.
these groups are
Excellent.
threats.
Until the
To
next
some
shipment.
villagers, they are hope or
Quality
protection,
is superb. We can
or
settle on
simply
3
a
chests of
story
silver for
that
the
makes
lot.
suffering
Very good,
feel
mister.
like it
We shall
has
prepare the
meaning.
next order immediately.
When pain is constant, meaning becomes a kind of medicine. Now consider the natural world.
All documented and accounted
China
for.
in 1800
A pleasure
is
doing
still
business
an
with you, sir.
agrarian giant. Most lives are tied to soil and season. That means weather is not background. Weather is destiny.
All
A
quantities
flood
match
on the Yellow
manifest,
River
Master Lee.
can erase
Very good, Mr.
years
Davies.
of labor.
Pleasure doing business
A
with you.
drought can turn fields into dust.
500 chests
Locusts
of bohea,
can
as
eat a
agreed.
province's
The count is
future
accurate. The
in a
silver
week.
is verified. We
A
are concluded.
cold snap
Good day,
can
Master
kill
Merchant.
seedlings.
This
A
shipment is
late
slightly underweight
monsoon
according to the
can break
manifest.
a rice
Nonsense.
cycle.
Weighed fairly in Canton.
And when
20,000
nature strikes,
silver taels. Very
the
well.
state
We have a deal.
is tested. Relief granaries, tax remission, public works, corvée labor.
20
All of
chests
it
of the
comes
finest
into
black
play.
tea, as agreed.
When the system works,
confirm the
it
count.
saves lives.
Transaction is complete.
When it fails, it fuels rage. In 1800, the Qing system still has capacity, but the cracks are showing. Not because the empire is weak in a single moment, but because the empire is aging under its own weight. Now, let's talk about the emotional atmosphere of 1800. It is not a year of a single dramatic collapse. It is a year of heavy continuation. The empire still stands. The rituals still run. The roads are still busy. The markets still hum. But there is a sense, especially if you listen closely, that the future is no longer effortless. Older generations remember the high confidence of earlier decades, the feeling that the Qing were not just rulers, but managers of a stable cosmos. In 1800, that confidence is less clean, still present, but shadowed. It's like a family that still has a beautiful house, but also has debt. They still host dinners. They still wear nice clothes. But the laughter is a little tighter. The smiles are a little more strategic. Now, here's a scene I want you to hold. A courtyard in Beijing. Snow on the tiles. A young official kneels with a memorial. He has spent days crafting his words. He knows every sentence can be a stepping stone or a trap. He writes about corruption. He writes about banditry. He writes about the price of grain. He writes about the need for discipline in the armies. He writes about the mandate of heaven, not as poetry, but as political reality. He believes the emperor might listen. He also knows the wrong ears might read his memorial first. So he bows, he submits, he waits. That waiting, that controlled fear, is part of how power works in 1800 China. Now, move to a tea house in a river city. Men sit at low tables.
They sip, they argue, they tell stories. Someone says the empire is eternal. Someone else laughs. Someone whispers about rebels. Someone changes the subject. A storyteller begins a tale of heroes and ghosts, and the room leans in. Because in a world of uncertainty, a good story is a kind of shelter. And if you watch the faces, you'll see it. People in 1800 are not just living inside history, they are negotiating with it. Let's return to the sea again for one last glance. At the docks, foreign traders wait. Chinese merchants calculate. Officials observe, suspicious and curious. The tide moves in and out, indifferent to policy. You can almost sense the next century pressing against the horizon. A century that will bring greater foreign pressure, internal upheaval, wars, treaties, and transformations that no one in 1800 can fully picture. But again, in 1800, that future is not a headline. It is a fog. People don't wake up thinking, I'm living at the edge of a turning point. They wake up thinking, how much rice do we have? Will my son pass the exam? Will the tax collector come today? Will the road be safe? Will the river behave? History is made out of those questions. So what is China in 1800? It is a giant empire, disciplined and strained. It is the sound of drums in Beijing. It is the groan of barges on the Grand Canal. It is the scratch of a scholar's brush on paper. It is the murmured prayers in a temple courtyard. It is the crack of muskets in distant hills. It is the smell of tea and smoke on southern docks. It is an administrative dream and a human reality. It is order and the cost of order. And if you listen closely, beneath the rituals, beneath the petitions, beneath the trade, beneath the fear, you can hear something steady. A population that keeps moving, a society that keeps adapting, a civilization that has survived dynasties, floods, wars, and winters, and knows deep down that survival is not a moment, it is a practice. China in 1800 is practicing, not perfectly, not peacefully, but relentlessly. End. Now, stay with me, because there's another layer to 1800 that matters. The invisible networks. In cities, guild halls quietly coordinate trade. In rural areas, lineage organizations settle disputes and fund repairs. In the underbrush of society, secret fraternities and sworn brotherhoods form. Some for protection, some for profit, some for belief, some for revenge. These networks are not always against the state. Sometimes they are the state's unofficial scaffolding. But when hardship rises, the same networks can pivot and become the skeleton of rebellion. That's the irony of empire. The structures that hold it up can also help pull it down. Let's walk through Beijing at night. The city cools. Lanterns glow like floating embers. A patrol passes, boots steady on stone. In a courtyard house, a family shares a simple meal. Steamed buns, greens, maybe a bit of pork if the day was good. Grandparents tell a story about the past, when the rain was cleaner, when taxes felt lighter, when roads felt safer. A mother shushes a child who keeps asking questions. A father listens more than he speaks. Because in 1800, conversation can be currency and also risk. Beyond the walls, the countryside is darker, but the stars are brighter. And the same empire that looks permanent in the capital can feel very far away under open sky. Now drop into a printing shop. Wood blocks stacked like bricks, ink thick and glossy,
paper drying on lines, a craftsman's hands blackened from work. Books in 1800 China are not just entertainment. They are status. They are ideology. They are the vehicle of moral language. Plays circulate. Poems circulate. Commentaries on the classics circulate. Cheap pamphlets circulate too. Stories, rumors, warnings. Information moves faster than a horse when people want it to. And when times are tight, stories spread like sparks. Now, a moment on the rivers. The Yangtze is wide enough to feel like an inland sea. Junks and sampans pass each other like thoughts. On one bank, a prosperous town glows with shop signs and lanterns. On the other, a muddy village clings to the edge of a field. In 1800, this contrast is sharpening, not because poverty is new, but because pressure makes inequality louder. A merchant can still get rich. A landlord can still buy more land. A tenant can still lose everything to one flood. And when people see that contrast, when they see wealth protected and hunger punished, resentment becomes a kind of weather. It settles into the air. Now, let's acknowledge something else moving in from the sea. New habits, new commodities, new dependencies. Tea is China's pride and profit. But across the water, foreign demand keeps growing. Silver comes in, and with it, a global pressure the Qing court cannot fully control. Along the coast, you see more foreign goods. More
And so the
foreign
magistrate,
faces,
seeing the injustice,
more foreign
slammed
influence.
his gavel down.
Small at first, but persistent.
Did you hear what happened to old Wang?
In 1800,
the tea is
it still
exceptionally
feels
fragrant.
containable,
And so, the
like a
magistrate,
tide you
seeing
can
the
predict.
injustice, struck the
But
gavel
tides
with
have a
thunderous
habit of
force.
teaching humans
The shipment
humility.
arrives at midnight. Tell no one.
Now imagine the
And
emperor
so
alone.
the warrior raised his sword.
Not the public
The
emperor,
weight of the empire
not the
rests heavy
ceremonial
on his
figure
shoulders
beneath
tonight, my
banners.
friends.
just a man at a desk, reading reports that smell faintly
And
of
so,
travel and
the
dust.
hero raised his sword,
He reads about a
bringing
flood.
it down with the force
He reads
of
about
a thunderbolt.
desertion.
The
He
magistrate
reads about a
declared the
provincial
verdict,
official
striking his
skimming
gavel
funds.
3 times.
He reads about grain prices rising.
Ruined.
He reads about
And so the
bandits using
magistrate,
slogans
seeing the
that sound
injustice,
like religion.
slammed his gavel down.
He knows the
Careful,
empire
that
is
shipment
vast.
is due tonight.
He also
And so,
knows that
the
vast
Sultan's
can
decree
mean
was final.
hard to hold.
The Grand Vizier
So he
had
writes
but a moment
directives.
to consider his
He
fate.
orders audits.
They say the
He
shipment
reshuffles
disappeared right under their
appointments.
noses.
He tries to make the
spirits of the
system
river know the
honest
truth,
through
and tonight,
force of will.
So shall you.
But an
The
empire
path
is not
to
a
success
single
is
room.
paved not just
It
with
is
ink and
millions
paper,
of rooms.
but with the silence
And
of
every
dedication.
room has its own
Friends,
small
Gather
truths.
close, for the tale I spin today
This is what
one of
makes
great
1800
peril
so
and even
gripping.
greater fortune.
It is not the
The
end.
Grand Eunuch rarely
It is the
leaves
moment
forbidden
before
city.
the end becomes imaginable.
Look at his robes.
The
Only
Qing
the highest
Empire
rank.
is still strong enough to
Friends,
look
Lend me
eternal,
your ears. The
Strong
tale
enough to
begins in the
punish.
shadows. He
strong
knows about
enough
the
to
ship.
build,
Be careful.
strong enough to perform grandeur. But underneath,
The
there
journey
is
was
strain.
long, and the hour
is
grew
fatigue.
late. Yet the scholar
There is the
remained.
early vibration
Finally
of
arrived.
change.
Did you hear the news?
A
Welcome,
civilization
friends.
can carry
Tonight,
strain for
we
a
speak of
long
the
time,
Iron Station Master and the
until it
Ghost
can't.
Bride.
The Silk
and in
Roads hide a
1800,
heavy secret.
China is carrying it.
Indeed, the weight of the court rests
So when you
upon his
picture
shoulders.
China in this year,
He raised
don't
the
picture
sword
a
high
postcard.
above his head,
Picture
the
a
moonlight
living
catching
body,
the blade, and
a
brought it
mind
down with a
that
mighty
plans,
swing.
a heart that pumps, muscles that march, skin that feels, nerves that react.
Careful now, don't
And
get
in
the
that
bender
body,
here.
you can already sense the next
Tonight I shall
century's
recount the
fever
legend of the
beginning
coiled
to
dragon
rise.
and the pearl of the river.
End.